What's up, you guys? It's your girl Yvonne Mills. I originally wasn't going to do an intro video, but as I got done editing, I'm like, let me do a little intro video in here. So here I am. I basically had to learn how to sew on labels because there's little to no information on how you can sew a clothing label onto lingerie pieces. So I had to pretty much teach myself so I could teach you guys, and I hope it works for you guys because it works for me. And another thing, down below in the comments, let me know what type of videos you guys want to see from me, because I'm open to whatever you guys want to know. I'm here to help y'all just like y'all help me. So I love you guys and enjoy. Okay, let's jump right into it. So these are the different color threads I have. Black and white are my go-to. They are the main colors I do use. You could get these from any crafting store, Michael's, Joann's. I got mine from Dacio. I'll link it down in the description. And right here is a seam ripper. I use this to remove all the labels that come with it, that come on the lingerie. It's very affordable and it's a must. It's very handy. You can get it from Michael's, Joann's, any crafting store. Again, pretty much all your sewing needs you could get from a crafting store. And here we have my labels. I got these from wonderlabel.com. The material or fabric that I have is satin. I use satin because all my pieces are pretty much polyester and I wanted to kind of feel the same. So that's what I got. You could pretty much use any fabric though for your lingerie pieces. It does not have to be satin at all. And this is just an example piece. I did this a year and a half ago. This was, I think, my first sewing piece I did. It was on a machine. I don't like using the machines because my pieces are so small and sewing by hand is the most convenient. So when ordering wholesale, there's times where the vendor will put their label on it and there's times where they'll just put the actual sizing on it. I love when they just have the size on. It's very easy and simple. I feel like when they put the label on, that's when you need to go inside with the seam ripper and rip off the label, which is what I'm showing you here. My piece that my newest vendor actually puts their label on, so I have to go back in and cut it and rip it out. But as you see, like with my sweatpants, there's no vendor label, it's just the size. And here's another piece with just the size. Again, when it's the size on it, it's just convenient and easier than having to rip it out. I'm cutting out the vendor label just because I don't want my vendor to show. I usually keep it on, but this is just for recording video purposes. So I'm going in with my seam ripper to rip off each thread. It's very important to make sure you rip off each thread that's attached to the label, because if you don't, the label won't come off properly. So make sure you do that. So right here, I'm lifting up the label to go underneath it to remove all threading that's attached under it. That's another important part, to make sure you get under it. And if it's two labels like mine, make sure you get in between as well. When they have their vendor and size like mine does, they attach them together. So you have to make sure you get in between, on top and on the bottom, to remove all the labels, all the threading to remove the label. So make sure you get all the threading off that way. And then right here, you just see me using my hand to remove the leftover threading that was from the label. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread my needle. I threaded through and I thread it a little long just to have extra cutting room, and I make sure, just like this, that there's thread on each end. So I'm going in and knotting it up, wrapping it around my fingers and making a knot. That's just the starting knot, and you'll see what I mean by that a little later. So you could barely see the knot, but you could definitely feel it. That's why it's important to specifically get thread that's for hand sewing and not machine sewing. And this is just another take of me tying a knot. So once you have your starting knot all good to go, you're going to tie 2 to 3 more knots. You're going to do it just like you would tie a shoe, easy and simple. The reason I do this is just to give it some more security, because this is going to be the starting knot to secure your whole label. So make sure your starting knot is firm and secure. So I'm pretty much just prepping, sizing it out, seeing where I want the label, and all that good stuff. I usually don't fold it. The only time I'll fold it is if the label is too long. Never cut your labels, because if you cut your label, your thread will start unthreading from the label. So don't cut, just fold and sew. Fold and sew. And another way to get a nice fold is with an iron. It will give it the perfect crease. So when you start sewing, you want to get as close as possible to the end of the label. You want to make sure you get the end, because if you don't, it will start lifting afterwards, like the side will be lifting. So make sure you secure the end of the label. And you see our starting knot stops it perfectly. So when I sew through the front, I go back and sew straight through the back. And I kind of just repeat this process throughout the whole sewing process. I don't go around and wrap it, because I like to kind of have the same sewing technique for all my labels. I could have went around with this one, but I've done that on a previous piece and it just looked kind of funky. So I just go front and back, front and back. So it's like you're poking the thread through the front side, and then you're going back through the back side and punching it again. This is something that just works for me. I'm not a professional sewer. I've never sewed in my life until I've started this lingerie business. I haven't had no issues with it. The tags are secure, they're sturdy, and it works for me. So, and I was looking for so many videos on sewing labels to lingerie, and I just couldn't find any. So I had to create my own process for it. So here it is. So this part is optional. As I get towards the end, you can stop and tie up your knot. But me, I like extra security, so I go back and forth. So where I'm ending right now, I will start to go back to where I started and then go back to where I ended, if that makes sense. So I basically just repeat the process a few times. You could do it once, twice, 3 times, as many times as you like, whatever fits best for you. For me, 2 to 3 works fine. And when you get to the end, make sure you get the end piece. Again, you don't want your label to lift up, so you want to secure it by getting as close as possible to the end. So you're pretty much going to see me repeating the same process with the sewing, as far as going straight through the front and then coming back through the back. I'm going to repeat this process and go back and forth a few times. So while you're sewing, you want to make sure that your label doesn't get too bulky and like scrunch up. So to avoid that, as you sew, just flatten it out and kind of stretch it out. And when you get towards the end of your sewing process, you're going to do a label check. And you're just going to lightly pull on your label to make sure that the thread is secured through the label. See, right here, I'm just checking, pulling it a bit to make sure that I'm all good to go. And this is going to be my last sew. So when I get to the end, I'm going to go ahead and tie it up. Well, knot it up. All right, so this last thread, I'm getting as close as possible to the end and looping it through, checking it, seeing if I need another one. Nope, I don't. Pulling it, seeing if it's okay. Am I happy? Yes, I am satisfied. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the end and knot it up. So right here, just like you tie a shoe, you're gonna knot it up about 3 to 4 times. I do 3 to 4 because again, the thread is so thin that you will not be able to see the knot. So 3 to 4 is perfect. And when you tie, you don't want to tie it too tight because as you see, it will get bunched up and you don't want to do that. So to just undo that, stretch it out a bit and realign it. All right, I'm just checking the knot to see if it's secure enough, and if I like it, I'm just adding one more, clearly, because I want to make sure it's extra secure. All right, now that I have my knot all good to go, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off, and then I'm gonna cut off the excess on the other side of it. And boom, there we go. We're all good to go. I messed up because the label should have been the opposite, but it's okay. That's what happens when you rush. Don't rush. Take your time. It's a slow process. You're going to get better as you sew. And this is with just me teaching myself. There was little to no information on sewing labels onto lingerie pieces. So here you guys go. I had to teach myself so I could teach you guys. But with all that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on IG at Yvonne's Lingerie. My personal, I am Yvonne. Mwah.